Hey all you heroes out there, I'm your professional protagonist and welcome to Hell Yeah Gaming, where we don't make mistakes, except for when we do. A few weeks ago I published my I Solved the Shadow of the Erdtree theory and, yeah. That happened. While the reception has been overwhelmingly positive, it has also garnered its fair share of criticism. So I would like to take this opportunity to address some of these criticisms, both as a learning opportunity to ensure I can improve my approach in the future, and to open up further dialogue with you as my audience. So, let's get to addressing my mistakes. No commenter of the day today, for the simple reason that, well, I'll be spotlighting a ton of comments by the very nature of this video. I also want to thank each and every one of you who took the time to do so, especially the people who provided constructive criticism. That said, there may be a few in there that are a little less than constructive, but don't go harassing anyone for their tone or being unfriendly, okay? So let's get right into it. The first one is going to be a long one, so buckle up. Narui1481 brings up 4 points which I will quickly summarize. 1. There are no mentions of dragons or serpents in Hornsent society. 2. Why are the beastmen in Faramazula? And why does Faramazula have no spiral or Hornsent imagery? 3. Plastigisax's remembrance says he was abandoned by his god, not that they were defeated. And the Gloam-Eyed Queen is only referred to as an Empyrean, not a god. And 4. Where do Mesmer and Melena's births fit into this? The main issue I draw from these questions is in my script writing process. I actually have answers to most of these, but either couldn't fit them into the flow, or didn't think to include them because I hadn't even considered the need to anticipate criticism. In the future, I will definitely work on improving the flow of communication and anticipating questions. To address the individual points, firstly, I agree that there's not much mention of serpents nor dragons within Hornsent society, and that's definitely a hole in my theory, but I don't think it's a ship-sinking sized hole when considering the rest of their symbolism. The spiral is in itself a very serpentine image, one that is heavily tied to the caduceus, either two serpents or a twin-headed serpent coiling around itself, which is heavily involved in alchemy as a symbol for Mercury as well as life, just as the spiral represents Crucible life. And, well, alchemy and its symbolism is baked all throughout Elden Ring's world. Second, I don't think there's any solid evidence that proves the beastmen of Faramazula are actually ancestors of humans, but that's a moot point as Faramazula exists outside of normal time. I also think that Placi's status as Dragon Lord is a separate station to his being Elden Lord, but even that is neither here nor there because there are links to the Crucible spiral. In addition to the version of the Elden Ring that existed in Placi's era, showing a whole series of spirals ascending toward a common point, Placi himself is found with his 2 remaining heads resting in a spiral. And this isn't something new for him either, as he is clearly depicted on the Old Lord's talisman, once again crossing his heads in a spiral. Then, of course, and I realize this one is a big reach, but stay with me here. There's the fact that Faramazula itself exists within a spiral storm, filled with many small spiral tornadoes, and is shaped a great deal like, well, a spiral. But you can largely ignore that point. Like I said, it's quite the reach. Third, okay, this is a big one. I actually got so many people commenting about Plassey's remembrance and the Gloam-Eyed Queen being an Empyrean that I pinned a comment with my explanation and a "Read this before you comment" headline. Not that it helped a lot. First, Plassey's remembrance. While in English it does say his god fled, this is, as far as I can tell in my research, a translation convention. The more direct translation states that his god is gone, with the specific Japanese word used, usually meaning that something is missing. This could mean his god fled, sure, but it could also mean that they've been killed, captured, or anything else. Plassey himself wouldn't know what happened, seeing as after his battle with Baal, he retreated into his time bubble. As for the Gloam-Eyed Queen only ever being stated to be an Empyrean, I have two contentions to that. The first is that even after Marika ascended to godhood, she was still recognized as an Empyrean, sometimes referred to as the Empyrean vessel for the Elden Ring. And so being referred to as one does not automatically discredit the other. She was never stated to be a failed Empyrean or only an Empyrean. That aside, let's take a closer look at the item that tells us of her status, the Black Flame Ritual. The wording used here is very important and intentional. It is said the Gloam-Eyed Queen was an Empyrean. This is a statement of rumor or hearsay, not a statement of fact. FromSoft uses this kind of language when they want us to question things or otherwise don't want to be totally clear. In light of this, we need to ask ourselves, what are the alternatives to this hearsay statement, and what do those alternatives accomplish? Well, the first is that she wasn't an Empyrean at all, but an ordinary demigod. And frankly, that's rather boring and unfulfilling. The next is that she was an Empyrean, just not chosen by the fingers, which, yes, could take us down some very interesting rabbit holes. Or it could mean that she was no mere Empyrean, but a fully realized god. So now I ask another question. Since the entire point of veiling the land in shadow and later sending Mesmer on a crusade was to cover up her original sin, which of those options makes the most sense to want to hide? And finally, the fourth point brought up by this commenter. Who is Mesmer and Melena's father? And how do I account for them in all this? Honestly, I don't account for them here. And that was very much intentional. Their parentage was outside the scope of that theory video, which was not intended to be a grand unifying timeline of early events, but a focused look on Marika's ascension and original sin. Mesmer and Melina were not mentioned because I did not find them particularly relevant to the topic. I feel like adding the timeline section at the end was the biggest mistake I made that led people to this. And frankly, I should have anticipated that people would have expected that these two would be included. Not making that more clear was a mistake. Okay. Let's move on to the second criticism. Zagazd says, intro music too loud. What? I can't hear you! Sorry, the music is too loud! I hear you on this one. Apologies. Back when I was doing all of my own editing, I lowered the intro music, but recently hired on a new editor. Say hi, Aaron! And sometimes I forget all the little intricacies I used to do myself in the instructions that I provide for him. From now on, we'll make sure that the intro music volume is lowered. Won't we, Aaron? And by we, I mean you. Make it happen, okay? We don't want any incidents like last week, do we? Do we? Our next comment comes from VDW is God. Nice JoJo avatar, by the way, who spent time pointing out some inconsistencies in the Horn-Sent Society's relationship to my theory. Mainly that Godfrey has no horns, the Horn-Sent having no affinity with fire, and there being no remnant of Godskin culture in the Shadowlands. First off, don't worry about coming off as mean, my dude. This is the epitome of constructive criticism. You're all good, and I've got much thicker skin than that. Not to mention, well, you're absolutely right. These points are unquestionably the biggest holes in my theory as I have presented it. My own thoughts on the matter are akin to one of Sherlock Holmes' most famous quotes. When you eliminate the impossible, whatever remains, however improbable, must be the truth. I feel that the evidence and logic I have provided led to certain ideas as having to be the truth, but I cannot deny that these details make it appear to be quite improbable, and I haven't really found a way to rectify this. At least when it comes to the Horn-Sent having no relation to fire, and the lack of Godskin culture, anyway. In regards to Godfrey having no horns, well, I never said that he himself was Horn-Sent, only that he was a respected warrior and or general in their forces. Hoaraloo craves war, and firmly believes strength determines who is in charge. And the Horn-Sent were the strongest force at the time. On the flip side of that coin, the Horn-Sent worked with non-horned and non-Crucible touched individuals plenty. Best example off the top of my head is how Midra was in high standing with them. Until that whole Frenzied Flame Inquisition thing, but the point remains. Hoaraloo was too powerful a warrior to deny in their ranks. But the rest of what you've said? You're absolutely correct, and I thank you for bringing it up. Next up, we have Capoleon, who had several points of criticism, but I want to focus only on one, as the others are based on other theoretical or otherwise unproven ideas as the foundation. They say that the war with the Fire Giants happened before the Liurnian Wars, and it was the first war the Golden Order ever waged. And, well, yeah, you're right. You're 100% right. I just straight up done goofed. I have no idea why, but for some reason I got it in my head some time ago that the war with the Fire Giants was Godfrey's last battle as Elden Lord before Marika made him into the first Tarnished. And, like, no. Literally, all the information we have straight up says it was the first war they waged. From the first Church of Marika being in the mountaintops of the Giants, to the Smithing Stone 8 stating that the war occurred at the birth of the Erdtree. You literally cannot get any earlier into the Golden Order than that. I have no excuse for this mistake. I'm just glad that it doesn't actually affect anything substantive in my conclusions in my line of logic. More than anything, this one is a lesson in not taking your beliefs for granted and making sure to double-check all of your assumptions. By far the most embarrassing mistake I made. Speaking of embarrassing, Tony Calibro 470 says that I should move my script to be in line with my camera so that I'm not constantly looking away. To be honest, that has always been one of my biggest struggles when I film scripted videos, and I've played around a lot with positioning my script and camera, but could never get it quite right. Good news! I just bought a teleprompter before filming this! Let me know how it's working! Moxie Watts made sure to let me know that I was wrong when I said that there was no mention of Godfrey in the DLC by pointing at the Talisman of Lord's Bestowal in Shadowkeep. This is a blatant mistake, but coincidentally one that helps my case. I hadn't found the talisman in my personal playthrough at the time I made my theory. In fact, I found the talisman during my weekly livestream the night before the theory was published. To confess, I actually still haven't beaten the DLC yet, because I'm saving it for my live streams. So the majority of my information was coming from other YouTubers and independent wiki research. And since, as I said in my video, literally nobody was talking about Godfrey, at least at the time, I had no idea the talisman existed yet. But hey, the best way to prevent mistakes like this one in the future is to subscribe to Hell Yeah Gaming and watch all my videos so I can afford to leave my full-time job. So, you know, this one's on you guys. No pressure. This video's gone on long enough, so I think we need to end on a banger. A real high note to go out on, and I think I've got the perfect comment. Fire K Swordsman says, "Wow, but what a way to fill holes with nothing, and to create more holes to fill them with more nothing. In the video there is a lot of talk, but practically nothing is said. There is nothing solved, just a lot of speculation and ideas. Remember people, getting the lore is by solving plot puzzles, reading item descriptions, etc., etc., not making up stories based on what you see in the game." I really couldn't have said it any better myself. Just who the hell do I think I am? For real though. Thank you all so much for the amazing support, both the praise and the helpful criticism. It means a lot to me that anybody watches these videos, much less puts in the time and effort to leave any amount of feedback. So remember to like, comment, subscribe, and most of all, remember that you deserve to give yourself a great big hell yeah!